The prison yard was loud just moments ago. Metal doors clanged, men shouted, boots scraped against concrete. Then suddenly silence. Every sound faded as the gang leader stepped forward. He was a mountain of a man, twice Bruce Lee's size. Thick arms wrapped in old scars, each one a memory of violence survived. His face was hardened, eyes cold, the kind of eyes that had broken men without throwing a punch. Behind him stood his crew, 5 men, spread out like wolves, watching, waiting. Everyone in the yard understood what this moment meant. The gang leader tilted his head and looked Bruce Lee up and down slowly, with amusement. "You don't belong here," he said, his voice low but carrying across the yard. "And you don't walk out unless I say so." A few inmates smirked. Others stepped back. This was how it always started. A challenge, a test, a message. Everyone expected Bruce Lee to react, to tense up, to explain himself, to show fear. That's what new inmates did when they realized they were trapped. Some shouted, some begged. Some swung first out of panic. Violence was the language of this place. But Bruce Lee didn't speak it. He stood still. No clenched fists, no aggressive stance, no change in his breathing. Just calm. Uncomfortable calm. It confused the gang leader. He narrowed his eyes, stepping closer, trying to provoke something, anything. "You deaf?" he growled. "This is my yard." Men leaned forward, sensing blood in the air. This was the moment bones usually cracked. The moment reputations were destroyed. But Bruce Lee did something no one expected. He didn't move back. He didn't move forward. He simply looked at the man, not with anger, not with fear, but with clarity, like someone assessing a problem already solved. The air felt heavier. Time seemed to slow, and in that brief, unsettling pause, something shifted. The laughter died. The whispers stopped. Even the gang leader hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. Because for the first time, the most dangerous man in the prison realized he might not be in control anymore. Bruce Lee's presence in that prison was never supposed to happen. It began with a misunderstanding while traveling overseas, paperwork delayed, officials confused, systems moving slower than truth. Nothing dramatic, nothing violent. Just one of those moments where authority doesn't ask questions and time becomes something you lose without warning. Inside these walls, none of that mattered. There was no fame here, no movie posters, no applause, no recognition. The name Bruce Lee meant nothing to concrete floors and steel bars. The moment he stepped inside, the outside world disappeared. The clang of the gate behind him wasn't just a sound, it was a message. Whatever you were before didn't matter anymore. The air smelled of sweat and metal. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Guards moved with tired eyes and inmates moved with sharp ones. Every new face was studied, measured. Wait, in prison, attention is never accidental. Bruce felt it immediately. Eyes followed him not openly, but carefully. Like predators watching something unfamiliar enter their territory. Newcomers always revealed themselves in small ways, the way they walked, the way they held their shoulders, the way their eyes darted when voices got loud. Fear showed quickly here, so did weakness. Bruce Lee showed neither. He moved calmly,
Not slow, not rushed, balanced.
controlled. His posture was relaxed, his breathing steady, his gaze soft but alert. He didn't avoid eye contact, and he didn't seek it. That alone made him stand out. In prison, calm is suspicious. Reputation is currency behind bars. You don't earn it with words, you earn it with moments. And newcomers are tested fast. Sometimes within minutes. Sometimes violently. The yard doesn't wait for introductions. Every block has its hierarchy. Every yard has its ruler. In this prison, the gang leader controlled everything. He ruled through fear, not chaos, but calculated intimidation. He didn't need to shout. His presence alone shifted the air. Men moved aside when he walked. Conversation stopped when he stared. His followers enforced his will without question. He enjoyed breaking people. Not quickly, not messily, slowly. Especially those who looked calm, because calm threatened his power. People who panicked were easy. People who bowed were boring. But calm men, they challenged the illusion. From the moment Bruce entered the yard, the gang leader noticed him. A man who didn't rush, a man who didn't shrink, a man who didn't perform toughness. Just calm. Too calm. The leader watched from a distance at first, testing, waiting, letting his crew observe how Bruce interacted, who he spoke to, who he avoided, how he reacted to noise and tension. Bruce spoke little, ate quietly, observed more than he participated. That unsettled people. Most newcomers tried to prove something. Bruce didn't. And in prison, that silence speaks loudly. Whispers started. "Who's that guy? Why is he so relaxed? Does he think he's untouchable?" The gang leader smiled when he heard the talk. Calm men always cracked eventually, and when they did, it was satisfying. This wasn't about money. It wasn't about territory. It was about dominance. The leader needed to remind everyone, especially the new man who controlled the yard. Bruce Lee, meanwhile, understood something most didn't. Prison wasn't about strength. It was about balance. Every space has rules. Every system has pressure points. Violence wasn't the answer here. Awareness was. Timing was. Control was. Bruce didn't see enemies. He saw patterns. He watched how men stood when the leader passed. He noticed who flinched, who looked away, who pretended not to notice. He felt the rhythm of the yard, the unspoken signals, the pauses, the tension that lived just beneath the noise. And through it all, he remained calm, not because he underestimated the danger, but because he understood it. That calm became the spark. The gang leader finally decided it was time. The yard was full. The audience was ready. And Bruce Lee, without knowing it, had already been chosen. Do you believe real strength needs to be loud? Type yes or no in the comments. Yard time always carried a different energy. The space was open, but nothing about it felt free. Concrete stretched wide beneath a pale sky, surrounded by fences layered with razor wire. Men gathered in clusters, lifting weights, pacing, trading cigarettes, pretending not to watch one another. Everyone felt it when the atmosphere shifted. Bruce Lee was walking along the edge of the yard, steady and unhurried, when a shadow crossed his path. Then another, and another. The gang leader stepped directly in front of him. Bruce stopped. Not abruptly, not defensively, just enough. The leader's body blocked the narrow space ahead, his presence deliberate. He stood close enough to feel the heat of Bruce's breath, close enough that stepping back would look like surrender. You think you're special? The leader said, his voice low, almost conversational. Bruce didn't answer. The leader circled him slowly, boots scraping against concrete. You walk like you're not afraid, he continued. That usually means one of two things. He stopped in front of Bruce again. You're stupid, or you're pretending. The yard went still. Conversations died mid-sentence, weights paused in mid-air. Even the guards watched more closely. In prison, this moment decides everything. Fight, and you might win today, but lose every tomorrow. Back down and you're owned forever. There is no neutral ground. Bruce stood quietly as the leader waited for a reaction. A shove, a flinch, a word spoken too fast, anything to confirm weakness. But Bruce Lee remained exactly as he was. His shoulders were loose, his hands open, his breathing slow. He lifted his eyes, calm, relaxed, unshaken. The leader frowned slightly. That wasn't the response he expected. You got nothing to say? He asked, leaning in. Bruce's voice was soft, almost gentle. No, he said. I'm just prepared. The words barely carried across the yard, but they landed hard. For a brief second, no one reacted. Then the gang leader laughed, loud and sharp, the kind of laugh meant to invite others to join in. His crew followed, mocking, pointing, enjoying the moment. Prepared for what? The leader sneered. You think this is a movie? The laughter spread, rippling through the yard like permission. But something underneath it was off, because Bruce hadn't laughed, hadn't moved, hadn't broken eye contact. The leader stepped closer, chest almost touching Bruce's. Let me explain how this works, he said. This is my yard. You move when I say. You speak when I allow it. He waited. Bruce didn't respond. That silence did something dangerous. It shifted the power. The gang leader felt it too. His smile faded. He could handle fear. He could handle aggression. But calm made him uncomfortable. Because calm suggested choice. The leader raised his voice slightly, not a shout, but enough to be heard. You're either brave, he said, or you're about to learn a painful lesson. Bruce Lee tilted his head just a fraction, not in challenge, in curiosity. The crowd leaned in. This was the point where someone usually swung, where pride exploded into chaos. Bruce didn't. He stood there rooted, balanced, like water contained in a glass that hadn't been touched yet. That's when the leader made his decision. His smile returned, thinner now. Let's test how prepared you really are. The gang shifted behind him. The air tightened, and in that moment when fists were expected, when violence felt inevitable, Bruce Lee did something that would silence the entire yard. But not yet. Because the biggest mistake was about to be made. The gang leader swung first. It wasn't wild. It wasn't sloppy. It was fast, heavy, and intentional, the kind of punch meant to end things quickly and publicly. A statement, not a fight. The yard inhaled. But Bruce Lee didn't retreat. He stepped in. Not away from the strike, into it. Time seemed to slow as Bruce's body moved with effortless precision. His foot slid just enough to change the angle. His torso rotated slightly. The punch passed where his head had been a fraction of a second earlier. And then, control. Bruce's hand met the attacker's wrist, not with force, but with placement. His other hand followed immediately, guiding the arm across its own momentum. The movement was smooth, continuous like water redirecting a falling rock. No punches thrown, no kicks launched, no wasted motion, just physics and balance. The gang leader felt it before he understood it. His arm locked. Not painfully at first, just stuck. His shoulder twisted against itself, his wrist angled in a way it was never meant to be. His forward momentum betrayed him, pulling his own weight off center. Bruce stepped once more. That was all it took. The leader's knees buckled not from pain, but from lost balance. He dropped to one knee, breath leaving his chest in a sharp exhale. The yard froze, no cheers, no gasps, no movement, just silence. Bruce stood behind him, calm as ever, maintaining the hold firm enough to control, gentle enough not to injure. His posture remained relaxed, his breathing unchanged. This wasn't dominance, this was mastery. The gang leader tried to move, nothing. Tried again, harder. Pain flashed now, sharp and undeniable. His pride collapsed faster than his body had. For the first time in years, he was helpless. Not beaten, not humiliated publicly, simply contained. Bruce leaned slightly forward, his voice low, steady, meant only for the man in his grip. Strength without control, he said quietly, always defeats itself. The words cut deeper than any strike. Around them, the gang didn't know what to do. They had seen fights before. They had seen blood. They had seen chaos. But they had never seen someone win without attacking. Never seen power expressed without anger. The guards watched closely, hands near their radios, unsure whether to intervene. But there was nothing to stop. No blows being exchanged. No escalation. Just one man kneeling, and another standing, calm, balanced, unmoved. Bruce released the pressure slightly, just enough. A choice. The gang leader felt it instantly. Bruce could end this, but he wasn't trying to. That realization broke something. The leader swallowed hard, breathing uneven, his face burning with confusion rather than pain. He nodded once, not in submission, but in understanding. Bruce let go. The leader staggered forward and caught himself, standing slowly, carefully, as if afraid the moment might repeat itself. Bruce stepped back. No victory pose, no warning. No threat. The message had already been delivered. The yard remained silent. Men stared at Bruce Lee differently now, not with curiosity, but with respect, because they hadn't just witnessed skill. They had witnessed restraint. And in prison where violence is everywhere, that kind of control is terrifying. Nothing had exploded. Nothing had escalated. Bruce leaned in slightly. Not enough for anyone else to hear, not enough to humiliate. Just close enough for the message to land where it mattered. You don't fight force with force, he said quietly. You remove its balance. His voice wasn't sharp, it wasn't threatening. It was calm, certain, finished. For a brief moment, the gang leader didn't respond. His breathing was still heavy, his muscles tense, his mind struggling to catch up with what had just happened. He had stepped into the moment expecting dominance, expecting fear, resistance, chaos. Instead, he had been paused. Controlled scene. Bruce slowly released the hold. No shove. No dramatic push, just space. The gang leader felt it immediately, the freedom to move, and with it, the weight of choice. He could swing again, he could shout, he could try to reclaim the moment with violence. But something had changed. He stood up slowly, carefully, rolling his shoulder as if checking whether it still belonged to him. His face wasn't twisted with rage anymore, it was quiet. Confused, humbled. And then, almost without anyone noticing, he took a step back. Not far, not exaggerated. Just enough. That single step echoed louder than any punch, because everyone understood what it meant. This wasn't surrender, it was recognition. The yard remained frozen. Men who had watched hundreds of fights suddenly didn't know where to look. There was no blood to react to, no winner to cheer, no loser to mock. Yet everyone felt it. Bruce Lee hadn't used strength. He hadn't tried to prove anything. He had demonstrated mastery, over movement, over ego, over the moment itself. The gang leader glanced around. His crew stood stiff behind him, uncertain, waiting for instruction that didn't come. For the first time, he didn't command the space. The space had chosen someone else. Bruce straightened, stepping away as if nothing significant had happened. His posture remained loose, balanced, unmarked by tension. He didn't look around for approval. He didn't acknowledge the audience. That silence spoke volumes. Because in prison, dominance is usually loud. It demands attention, it insists on fear. What Bruce had shown was something different. Control without cruelty, power without performance. One of the younger inmates swallowed hard. Another lowered his eyes. Even the guards, trained to respond to chaos, stayed still, unsure whether they had just witnessed a confrontation or a lesson. The gang leader exhaled slowly. He nodded once. Not to Bruce, to himself. He understood now. Bruce hadn't tried to win the yard. He had shown he didn't need it. The tension dissolved not with noise, but with acceptance. Conversations resumed slowly. Weights clanked again. Men moved, but with a new awareness. Bruce Lee walked away calmly, blending back into the rhythm of the yard. But nothing was the same. Eyes followed him differently now. Not hunting, not testing, measuring. Respect had replaced curiosity, and fear, the real kind, had shifted direction. But everything had changed. If you felt that moment, comment below KORL, VOLNCE. Because what? From that day on, no one challenged Bruce Lee. Not openly, not quietly, not indirectly. There were no whispers of revenge, no tests, no late-night confrontations. Not because anyone was afraid he would attack, but because everyone understood he could. In prison, that distinction matters. Violence invites violence, control ends it. Bruce didn't suddenly become the center of attention. He didn't lead a group. He didn't claim territory or demand space. He continued exactly as he had before, walking calmly, speaking little, observing everything. But the air around him had changed. Men gave him room now, not out of fear, but awareness. Conversations lowered when he passed, not because he demanded silence, but because his presence carried weight. The yard had adjusted. The gang leader, too, had changed. He didn't avoid Bruce, and he didn't challenge him. When their paths crossed, there was no tension, just a brief nod, small, almost unnoticeable. But in prison, a nod is everything. It was acknowledgement, an unspoken agreement that lines had been drawn and understood. The gang leader still ruled his circle. Fear still existed. The prison hadn't transformed into something gentle. This was still a place shaped by survival and hierarchy. But something had shifted beneath it. The leader no longer needed to prove himself around Bruce. And Bruce no longer needed to demonstrate anything at all. That balance held. Other inmates noticed. They began to understand what had really happened that day in the yard. Bruce Lee hadn't embarrassed the leader, hadn't taken his position, hadn't challenged his authority. He had simply revealed a higher level of control, and that revelation changed behavior. Men who once postured now hesitated, not because Bruce watched them, but because they watched themselves. They saw how quickly dominance could collapse when stripped of balance and ego. Bruce's calm became contagious. Some inmates began training quietly, stretching, breathing, focusing on movement instead of aggression. Others asked questions, cautiously at first. How did you stay so calm? Bruce never lectured. He answered simply, briefly. Awareness, timing, control. Nothing mystical, nothing dramatic, just discipline. Guards noticed too. Incidents near Bruce decreased. Arguments ended sooner. Tension diffused without escalation. He didn't intervene. His presence alone seemed to soften the edges of conflict. That's what real respect does. It doesn't dominate. It stabilizes. In prison, fear rules by default. Fear makes people react. Fear makes them strike first. Fear keeps the cycle spinning. But something stronger exists. Respect slows things down. It creates space. It introduces choice where there was only impulse. Bruce Lee never asked for respect. He earned it the moment he chose restraint over violence. And that choice echoed far beyond that single confrontation. By the time his situation was resolved and his release came, there was no celebration, no goodbyes shouted across the yard. Just quiet acknowledgement, nods, looks, silence. Bruce walked out the same way he had walked in, calm, balanced, unremarkable to an untrained eye. But behind him the yard remained changed. Because one man had shown that real strength doesn't conquer. It settles. And in a place ruled by fear, that is the rarest power of all. Bruce Lee proved something powerful that day, not with words, not with fists, not with fame, but with restraint. In a place where violence was normal, where fear was currency, where survival depended on intimidation, he chose control. True strength doesn't shout. It doesn't threaten. It doesn't need witnesses. Because real power isn't about how many people you can overpower. It's about how many moments you can master. Most people think strength looks loud, raised voices, aggressive stares, dominance on display. But that's not strength. That's insecurity trying to be heard. The strongest man in the room isn't the one everyone fears. It's the one who doesn't need to be feared at all. Bruce Lee understood something few ever do. When you control yourself, you control the situation. Anger wants to react. Ego wants to prove. Fear wants to strike first. Discipline waits. Discipline observes. Discipline chooses. In that prison yard, Bruce could have hurt someone. Everyone knew it, especially him. But strength gave him the option. Discipline told him not to use it. That choice is what changed everything. Because violence ends moments, control changes environments. Think about it. How many conflicts in life escalate because someone had to win? How many relationships break because ego refused to step back? How many fights start, not because they're necessary, but because someone felt disrespected? Bruce Lee didn't defend his pride. He defended his balance. And balance is power. The lesson isn't about prison. It isn't about gangs. It isn't even about Bruce Lee. It's about you. It's about the moments when someone challenges you, disrespects you, tries to pull you into noise and chaos. Anyone can react. Few can remain calm. Calm isn't weakness. Calm is clarity under pressure. A calm mind sees options where panic sees only fists. Bruce Lee once said, "He who conquers himself is the greatest warrior." That day in prison he lived it. No applause, no recognition, no audience needed. Just quiet strength and lasting respect. And that's why the story matters. Because long after the confrontation ended, after the yard returned to its rhythm, after Bruce walked away, the lesson remained. Strength that seeks attention fades. Strength rooted in discipline lasts. So here's the question for you. When you're tested, when your ego is challenged, when silence would speak louder than action, what do you choose?
Type respect if you believe discipline beats dominance. You and tell